Newsfirst, Newsline.
Hello there, a very good evening. Welcome to another edition of Newsline Live. I'm coming to you, of course, live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo after quite a break. Your usual host, Farah Shakutali, is out for today. I'm Charlene Benedict and I will be sitting in for him today. First of all, getting to know our guest this evening, Professor Tissa Vitarana. Thank you very much, Professor, for accepting our invitation and coming on our show. We know it's a very trying time, not only for the government, but for the people of this country as well. And as a representative of the government, you're one of the very few who, whenever we extend an invitation to appear on a show, fearlessly come forward and represent the government. Thank you very much for that, Professor. So to begin our show today, we know that there's a lot of strife, a lot of anger among the general public about the current situation in the country, directed at various factions, previous governments, the current government, businessmen, certain mafias in the country, as some would call it. But I thought I'd begin today's program with a small status that I saw on social media. Of course, this is of a person who I happen to know, and this person today wrote like this: I have been working hard since even before I left school, making money to cover expenses. I stayed here, as in Sri Lanka, because my parents are old and I feel like I should be there for them, even though they kept insisting that I should migrate overseas. At this point, everything seems futile. My dad's medicine costs a fortune every month, but that too is okay. I've always found a way to earn money. But right now, there is a medicine shortage in the country owing to the forex crisis, and pharmacies are saying that in the coming months, his medicine will not be available for purchase freely. What are we to do if we don't even have medicine to pay and buy in the near future, as in the months to come, 2 to 3 months? It's pretty unfortunate that even someone who is willing to work hard and earn can't survive in Sri Lanka. And then he goes on to, well, of course, express more of his sentiments. But this really caught my eye, and I'm pretty sure this is a representation of how a lot of people in Sri Lanka feel right now. Professor, do you agree with this?
Well, you see, as you mentioned, we are having a severe foreign exchange crisis, and our reserves have come down to a little over 1 billion, 1.3 billion. We are deeply in debt, and in that situation, shall we say, the usual trade facilities are not available to us in dealing with foreign countries, in getting our supplies. And the country really faces a deep crisis, which may well even affect the import of medicines. That possibility is there, but I hope that it will not arise if we act sensibly and meet the crisis in a way that will not force us into that type of position.
Right. I'll take a page from what you spoke right now. You said act sensibly. In your opinion, in your honest opinion, do you believe that the government is acting sensibly right now?
Well, shall I put it this way? There are the decision to return to developing a national economy as opposed to a neoliberal economy, which the previous government really carried out, shall we say, excessively. Gradually, from 1977 onwards, the drift towards neoliberal policies completely opening our country to imports from foreign countries, not producing things that we could produce here because they could be got cheaper from abroad. So we have got away from that very dangerous situation, and the government has said we are for instance stopping imports of vehicles, we are cutting down on luxury good imports, and minimizing the gap between our foreign income and expenditure.
But Professor Tissa Vitarana, the real question here is the fact that it's incumbent upon every government to manage the economy of the country. So back when this government came into power, back in end of 2019, I believe, did the government not see this coming, a forex crisis of this nature?
No, you see, the previous government was driving us quicker towards a situation of extreme crisis, you see, and now by taking a decision that we are going to return to the policies which have been followed by the centre-left governments since 1956, will be restored, right?
So, Professor, you're saying that the government is now switching away from neoliberal policies and going towards building a national economy,
a national economy where we but if possible produce everything that we need, right? Minimize the dependence on imported goods. Okay, now this has to be done if we are going to cut down adverse forex crisis.
But Professor, the problem really is that this government has attempted to bring about many changes. They spoke about many changes, and this is what the people asked for. The people asked for a change in the system. But whenever this government attempted to create that change, they have, what can I say, in very loose terms, messed up real bad. Let's take, for example, Professor, the transition from chemical fertilizer to organic fertilizer. That alone, that transition alone wasn't planned. It's now very evident as to how ill-prepared the government was, that even a simple procurement of organic fertilizer from a foreign company led to a massive crisis where we have to now pay this valuable forex, variable foreign currency, to goods that we have not even received. And as a result of not having chemical fertilizer, we are now facing exorbitant prices of vegetables and rice. And we have even the Secretary of Agriculture, who was removed just a couple of hours ago, saying that if there is a shortage of food or a food scarcity in the country, the youth will have to forego their food and provide the opportunity for pregnant mothers, children, and the elderly to eat. So that alone was a huge mess up. Are you confident that the government can transition from these neoliberal policies that we've been adopting since the 70s to a national economy? Do you think they'll not mess that up?
Definitely. For instance, to give you an example, in 1972-73, when the coalition government led by Mrs. Sirima Bandaranaike, Dr. N.M. Pereira was the Minister of Finance, and during that time he stated very clearly to the country that we are faced with a severe economic crisis and we have to tighten our belts. And
this was in which year?
1972-73.
1972-73.
Right. Now, there was one of the worst droughts for 30 years up to that time, and there was a worldwide shortage of food. Just to give you an example, a ton of sugar, which was usually costing around 40 pounds per ton, went up to 600 pounds per ton. Okay, and that on the in that situation, Dr. N.M. said very clearly, there is a severe burden, severe crisis. The burden must be shared by the government as well as those who have profited from the labor of the people during that period.
So this was in 1970, you said, Professor? 1972. So Professor, Dr. N.M. from that time spoke about this crisis. He spoke about tightening the people's belts.
But you see, at present, the tax, maximum direct tax on individuals has been reduced to 14%, on companies to 18%. Okay? Now, this should be increased to, what Dr. N.M. did was he increased it to 70%, right? And he, in that way, he was able to get the money that he required to meet that crisis, first from the angle of the local economy, and then also the luxury lifestyle, etc., where people are buying unnecessary things from abroad. We were having an adverse balance of trade.
But Professor Tissa Vitarana, it's kind of ironic that you, being a member of parliament, with your colleagues, of course, representing the government as a whole, are speaking on tightening belts and spending on unnecessary things, when over 60 MPs, members of government, are overseas, including the Minister of Finance, when the country is facing such a grave situation. Do you agree with this? Do you think it's normal, it's okay for the leaders of our country to act in such a way? When today I was watching the news, there was a man who said, I had to break my daughter's till to pump fuel for my three-wheeler, so that I can, run a couple of hires and get some money and get food for my family. So do you think this is all right? Is this okay? Is this normal?
Certainly not. I don't agree with that type of behavior, where we have to give the lead from above and set an example to everybody to tighten the bells, well and truly, and that if it is done properly with determination, right? For instance, Dr. N.M. at that time, he was from my own party, the LSSP, said for a period of 3 to 4 years, we have to go through a period of austerity, and the extent to which we successfully do that, the quicker we get out of the it's a global crisis, right? People were starving in countries abroad. In addition, the setting up of a very good cooperative setup, where the producer cooperatives and the consumer cooperatives were were widespread right throughout the country, were made efficient, and the exploitation by the middleman, which is rampant in our society, was minimized.
Professor, for us to face these austerity measures or to accept these austerity measures and act accordingly, the lead must be taken by the leaders of our country.
I agree.
I'm pretty sure that you will agree with me when I say that the leaders of our country don't seem to be ready to do that. They don't seem to be ready to do that, especially with the fact, of course, that you agreeing that behavior of this nature, where MPs and including the finance minister left the country at a time when we are facing one of the most severe crises that the country is facing since independence. Of course, we will speak about the preparations for austerity measures because, like it or not, you and I are the people who've elected successive governments in this country. Whatever the government does, we are the people who have appointed them, elected them, and we at the end will have to pay the price for what they have done since we have elected them. We'll cross over to a short commercial break and bring you more on Newsline Live.
News First, Newsline.
Hello there and welcome back. You're watching Newsline Live. We're in conversation with Professor Tissa Vitarana from the Lanka Sama Samaja Party. He is a member, of course, of the coalition government of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Professor Tissa Vitarana, we were speaking about the possibility or the probability of having to accept the fact that we will have to go through austerity measures in the future. However, of course, I'd advise you to tread lightly when you speak about these matters, of course, because today the Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture said that if we do face a scarcity of food, the youth will have to sacrifice their food in favor of the elderly, the pregnant and children, and he lost his position in a matter of hours. I hope and pray that, of course, that doesn't happen to you. Professor, you were speaking about these austerity measures.
Yeah, you see, for instance, I go back to the example of 1972-73, where the cooperative movement was so strong that it was able to supply all the essentials in terms of food that you raised, and in fact even give one measure of rice at that time free, and no one in Sri Lanka starved when in practically all third world countries around the world people are starving and dying. And so that example of austerity which persisted, where the people were taken into the confidence by the government at that time, and the government said very clearly, there is a global crisis, there is a crisis of the international capitalist system which has affected us, right? And we have to then take measures to meet that crisis, and the measures meant sacrificing the type of life that we had got used to, luxury lifestyles and so on, and people were then mentally prepared to meet that situation, and the lead was given by the leadership at that time. And
but Professor, the leadership at this time, do you think they are giving a proper lead?
I would think no.
No. So Professor, if now, like you say, we are heading towards austerity measures, and that you believe, your party believes that we need to move out of this neoliberal economic system and, you know, develop our national economy, we need to face these austerity measures, give up our luxury lifestyles. Are you raising a voice for this in the government, inside the government?
Well, wherever it's possible, I try to do that, but unfortunately, you know that the 11 partners of the government, major party,
the affiliated parties,
SLPP, meet separately, and we started meeting once in 2 weeks. Now we are meeting once a week because we are not satisfied with the policies which are being followed at this moment, and we feel that the way things are being conducted are not in the best interests of the country. For instance, the problem of natural gas, which was given to an American company.
The LNG deal, and the Yugadanavi power plant.
Yugadanavi plant, yes, right. So now those are, shall we say, against the policies that we agreed to at the start, that we will not sell any of our assets
Professor Tissa Vitarana, I've spent the better half of my career as a journalist here at Newsfirst speaking about policies of governments that are never implemented. People will speak about policies, politicians will come, speak about policies, they will never implement it. At least in the few years that I have worked as a journalist, the better half of my career, I have never seen a government stick to any of the policies that they spoke. They have always contradicted their policies. This government included, Professor. Like you said, Professor, they said they won't sell national assets, but they continue to sell national assets, but they don't even admit the fact that they're selling the national assets. They say, it's no, it's on a 99-year lease, this is not a sale. I mean, potato.
That's where I disagree. My own feeling is that we must tell the people, Sri Lanka as a small economy, even big economies like USA are facing this crisis. People are losing jobs.
Professor, just one thing. I was thinking about this whole argument that you know, this is a global crisis and everywhere in the world people are feeling the impact of this. But I must say that many people are of the opinion that this whole transition from chemical fertilizer to organic fertilizer, the massive campaign that the government took saying that people are eating poison. People shouldn't eat poison, people should eat organic, and this whole conversion is what really led to the massive increase in prices of vegetables. I believe in the market, one bean costs about 20 rupees, an egg costs about 30 rupees right now. So, Professor, that is a crisis created by our own government. Do you agree with that?
No. As I told you, for instance,
the overnight transition.
The overnight transition.
Yes, exactly, Professor.
Was unwise.
Was unwise, exactly.
Right.
And I believe you stood by that stance at the beginning, from the beginning.
From the beginning,
yes,
I have said that the transition should be gradual. It should be stepwise, right? I mean, and our local production of organic fertilizer should be progressively stepped up, and also it required the not just 23 companies being commissioned to produce them, and this should be done at farmer level. The farmers should be brought into the whole process, and farmers, once they are, for instance, our party, we have a agriculture committee of experts. Dr. Lionel Vitarana, who was
Professor, it's clear that your party has been against this whole overnight transition, and it's
and we have also said that the farmers themselves should be trained
on how to produce organic fertilizer. Fair point, Professor. Professor, I'm not an expert in agriculture. I have grown a few plants here and there, but I highly doubt that will qualify. But I myself understand the fact that you cannot transition from a chemical fertilizer system or plants that are used to chemical fertilizer to organic fertilizer overnight. There were experts who came and told the government, no, this cannot be done. It's been proved in the world that no country can produce their agricultural requirements 100% by organic fertilizer. However, this government opted to do that. They were adamant that it will be done, and now people are suffering. Do you agree or admit to the fact that this rapid increase in food prices, rapid increase in prices of bread, the government being forced to remove control prices, is wholly, if not mainly, because of this very, very unwise decision?
Yes, I think it's a unwise decision. It should have been you see, unfortunately, where in the earlier government that I was with President Mahinda Rajapaksa, we used to meet with him every week and discuss all these matters. Our point of view was taken into consideration, policies were amended where necessary, and the shall we say, the government acted as
a whole,
as one coalition, as one unit.
Professor,
now, at the moment, the 11 leaders of the partners which are working with the major party are meeting separately, because we have been asking for discussions with the president, with the prime minister, and so on, right? So now we have our voice is not being heard or not being taken into consideration.
Professor, we're in the final minute of this show. One final question. I need a yes or no answer from you. Are you ready to give up your luxury lifestyle and to face austerity measures in the future?
Definitely am.
Professor, of course, I believe that is commendable, the fact that you are, because like it or not, to all our viewers out there, it's one thing that we must accept the realities of the present times. And although the government might be hesitant to accept the realities of the times, we need to accept it, we need to prepare for it so that we can face it successfully. And at the end of the day, we, as a country, as one Sri Lanka, can come out of this. Of course, Professor, I would urge you, of course, to have a little bit of a conversation with your colleagues in Parliament, because although you, being a very senior member in Parliament and have shown your dedication towards the country, are ready or is ready to face these austerity measures and to cut down on your lifestyle, many parliamentarians are not. We have even received a message from one of our viewers saying, austerity for the people, prosperity for the 225. That cannot be the case. We need to face this as one country and come out as one country. Am I not right, Professor?
I would agree with you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us on our show. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in. Of course, take care and God bless. I hope that all of us can come out of this crisis in one piece at the end. Thank you very much for tuning in.